We have gathered virtually for a webinar on blockchain fundamentals hosted by Department of BCA, KLE Societies Degree College, Nagarbavi. Before proceeding further, I would like to share few words about KLE Society and our department. Karnataka Lingayat Education Society, started in 1916, occupies a very special niche in the field of education, has now grown into large institution that encompasses an autonomous university and over 270 institutions spread across the country and outside, with over 16,000 employees working to cater the needs of more than 1,25,000 students. Collaborations with universities in the US, the UK, and Malaysia have added the whole new dimension to the KLE Society, making it on par with the reputed educational institutions worldwide. The Department of Bachelor of Computer Applications was started at KLE Society's Degree College, Nagarbavi, in 2017 with a mission to provide high quality computer education to the students. The institution grooms its students to excel in, as future politicians. We have plenty of learning opportunities for our students. We have association with the ICT Academy, UiPath, Oracle, Palo Alto, AWS Academy, Micro Focus, and Salesforce. Today, we are hosting our sixth webinar, Cloud Arena webinar series. The speaker of today's webinar is Dr. Kiran Manjappa sir. So I would like to briefly introduce him.
Yes, please.
Dr. Kiran sir, he received his BE and MTech degrees under Vishveshwaraya Technological University from JNN College of Engineering in 2003 and 2006. He received his doctoral degree in 2014 from Department of Information Technology, NITK, Surathkal, Mangalore. He is awarded with Rajiv Gandhi National Scholarship for pursuing his doctoral research. Currently, Sir is working as Assistant Professor in Department of Information Technology, National Institute of Technology, Karnataka, Surathkal, Mangalore. And Sir has 14 years of teaching and research experience. He has contributed to the literature through many international conferences and journals, publications under IEEE, IET, and Springer Publishers. He has published a research-oriented textbook named Quality of Service-Aware Routing Protocol under leading publishers CRC Press, Taylor, and Francis Group in 2016. He is writing another book called Advances in Deep Learning for Medical Analysis, a Practical Approach, which is about to be published in 2021 by Taylor and Francis Group. He is on the technical expert committee for the smart city projects called e-library and centralized command center in two districts, Shivamogga and Mangalore, Karnataka state. He is also a technical committee member of Regional Academic Center for Space, sponsored by ISRO and NITK. His research interests include blockchain technology, 5G and beyond, soft computing, and swarm intelligence. So now I request Dr. Kiran sir to present his talk. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. And so formally, I would like to thank Professor Priya ma'am for a wonderful, nice introduction. And also, I would like to thank one more coordinator, Professor Vijay Kumar. So for taking up this responsibility and arranging this webinar, taking the pain. I know how much it is painful to arrange one webinar as well as workshop. There are a lot of formalities to be done. You are through with that. So it is my responsibility to execute this webinar properly. And I'll do it definitely. And if I, shall we start with the webinar? Shall I share my screen?
Sure, sir, you can.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
The panel?
Yes, sir. It's
Yes,
visible.
sir, it is visible.
Okay, I'll start with the webinar. Panel, I request you to interrupt me if anything is wrong with the voice or connectivity or
Okay.
any technical hiccups.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Please feel free to disturb me.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So let us start this webinar. The webinar, the name is Blockchain Fundamentals. This webinar is all about what do you mean by blockchain, and so like how blockchain evolved and what exactly you can find in blockchain, the applications of blockchain, as well as some of the research trends, the recent research trends in blockchain. And let me clarify one thing here. I'm not going to tell anything about the Bitcoin technology. Bitcoin, so because so most of the people will assume that blockchain, blockchain means Bitcoin. So if I say blockchain, people will discuss about Bitcoin. So basically, I'm going to discuss the technology behind Bitcoin. So that is blockchain technology. So that's one clarification what I thought of giving to you. So before I start my webinar. And so apart from this one, whenever I go for a presentation expert talk regarding blockchain technology, usually I'll get the most common the questions. And what I have done is the most common questions I have put in the slides itself. And apart from that, if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. And at the end of the session, the panel will put forward that same questions to me, and I'll answer those questions if it is within my capacity. Okay. So with this clarification, let me start the presentation. So blockchain fundamentals. The contents goes like this. First, I'm going to discuss blockchain. Like, what is blockchain, and how what exactly the structure of blockchain and all those things. And next, I'm going to discuss about how chain is maintained, and followed by working principle of blockchain, how exactly blockchain works, and so blockchain architecture. We got a flexible architecture, so which can be can be tailor made for any applications. So based on the application, you can fine tune your blockchain architecture. So that I'm going to discuss. And blockchain applications, most important thing. And most of the people, they think that blockchain is basically for financial applications. But in today's scenario, people have crossed that level. They have went, the extra mile to use this blockchain technology for other applications as well. And what are all those applications that we're going to see? And so blockchain research challenges as well. So if you are interested to do some major project, or the minor project, or the research, so probably I may give some I may give some inputs to you. Okay. And at last, question and answers. So this is a scenario how I'll go. And coming to very first topic, blockchain. So I can say that a blockchain is a chain of blocks, and it is just like a linked list what we have seen. So in the computer science as well as information science curriculum. So we can see that a linked list is a collection of nodes, different nodes, and each node is linked with another node through reference. So that means a chain of nodes which are linked. So that is called as linked list. In the same way, we got a chain of blocks. We got multiple thousands of lakhs together of blocks, and those blocks are linked together to form a chain, and that's why it is called as blockchain. So blockchain, it is self-explanatory. So chain of block is called as blockchain. So this is a very vague definition what I can give to you for a layman, in an understandable way, layman understandable way. But there are different definitions for blockchain, bookish definitions, so that you can refer different books and you can come to know. But down the line, so all the definition says that it is a chain of blocks. Okay. So next thing is, it became extremely popular because of its distinguishing features. And what are all those features? Very first thing is, it's an open ledger. So this is an open ledger. We'll say this is a ledger because it contains all the information. Whatever you do in the blockchain network, that will be recorded. That will be recorded in the ledger. And that ledger is open to everyone. So that is why it is called as open ledger. And this ledger is stored in a distributed way in the network. So that is why it is called as distributed open ledger. So this is one of the feature what we got, the openness of blockchain. So which everybody accepted and they praise the blockchain technology. And the next topic next advantage what we have is the anonymity. The user anonymity makes blockchain completely, like the activity is completely, the identity, I mean to say, completely hidden. For example, in blockchain, what I can say is, only thing, supposing that I'm doing some transactions in blockchain network, only thing what you can see is my address, blockchain address. So who is behind that address, nobody will come to know. So that is a user anonymity what we have. So because of that reason, probably whatever the transaction happens in blockchain network, so the other people or government will not come to know. The transparency is not there in terms of users, but transparency is there in terms of contents in blockchain. You just understand this point. The transparency is there in contents of blockchain, whereas transparency is not there in the in the user identity. Okay, so that is one point what one should note down. The another point is it is immutable. So immutable in the sense, so once you store information in the blockchain, you cannot change it, you cannot edit it, you cannot delete it. So that means it's a permanent storage what we are storing in ledger. So once it is stored, that's it, you cannot do anything. So that is one more advantage what we have in blockchain. And also it avoids the central servers. Because it avoids central servers, it is democratic. Okay, so far what we have seen is the most of the applications are client server architecture. So client server architecture, what happens is all the users have to stick to the server's rules and regulations. Though you have some concern, so though you have some points, though you have some problems, you cannot express that to servers because it's a one-way communication. So server to client, whatever you request, server will provide. Whatever the server provides, you need to accept it. There is no choice for the end users. Whereas if we go for blockchain, an individual user, he has got complete liberty to express his feelings. Supposing that if a user comes to know that the transaction is wrong, and he can straight away reject it. He can straight away say that the transaction is wrong. I won't accept this one. Whereas such facility or such liberty is not there in client server architecture. So that's about democratic nature of blockchain. And so it avoids middlemen as well. For example, if I take, supposing that I want to transfer some money to you. So the middleman in this case will be banks. I have to go through bank. Okay, so I have to reach out bank to send some money to you. Okay, so that is a third party what we have here. So that third party, so-called middlemen, so that will be removed. That concept will be entirely removed in blockchain. That means each user is very much responsible here. Okay, as I said, each user can express his feelings. He is very, very important. So his inputs will be taken. So that is the advantage of blockchain. And there'll be a single chain which contains all information. As I said, there'll be hundreds of thousands of blocks, and all those blocks are maintained in a single chain, and that single chain contains all information. So that's a classical explanation, classical structure what we have. But in today's research, so we are going for multiple chains. So that I'll discuss in the coming slide. So a single chain contains all the information. Okay, so that you should note down. Yes, panel.
We're not able to see the slides, sir. It is still in the first slide. Now we can see, sir. Thank you.
One minute. Can you see my screen, panel?
Yes, sir.
Yes, panel. Thank you. And so that's what. So there are multiple points here. So it's a chain of blocks, very first point, and it has got very distinguishing features. So it's an open ledger and which is distributed, and it has got a user anonymity. It is immutable. So we got a central servers over here. I mean, no central servers. That's why it is democratic, and middlemen are not there. For example, just what I said, the bank, and we got a single chain which contains all the information. Okay, and so the next thing is, can you see my screen, panel?
Yes, sir. You can see.
Revolution or evolution?
Sir, actually, if it is a slideshow, it would be good, sir, so that it is not moving. Yeah, now it is there, sir.
Okay. So if I go for slideshow, probably it is throwing some error. So I'll be giving my presentation with this, with the raw mode only. Okay. So next thing is most of the people would have understood that blockchain has all of a sudden it evolved in 2009 and it revolutionized industry. If you think that, I'm very sorry. Blockchain is a very old concept. So nearly it's a 4-decade-old concept. As the first point says, the cryptocurrencies concept, you can find its root during 1980s. So way back in 1980s. So what I mean to say here is, so blockchain is not a very new concept, very new technology. It slowly got evolved. So it's a debating concept. So people will say that blockchain is a very new technology and it got revolutionized industry within a very short span of time. But so if you ask me, so of course it's my opinion. It's an evolution. So let us see how this blockchain got evolved. The very first version of cryptocurrency you can see in 1984, so which was introduced by David Chaum, and he introduced two concepts of the financial exchange. That's a e-financial exchange. So that's a blind signature, very first point, and next point is secret sharing. So these are very basic concepts for financial applications in over the net. So blind signatures means the signatures which are given by you, and we will accept that. So we will accept that. So you are the authorized person. So we will go to accept it. So that is blind signatures, and secret sharing is anonymity. So that's the very first concept what you can see of cryptocurrencies in 1984's research, that is by David Chaum. And followed by this one, so we got eCash, so very famously called as CFN, so Chaum, Fiat as well as Node. So these are the authors who invented eCash with a slight modification, and this concept has been optimized and it was called as the brand's eCash. And followed by that, so we got one algorithm called as Hashcash, so very famous one. So it was introduced by Adam Baek in 1997, so which revolutionized the email concept. Okay, so you know that, so in every if you take Gmail, we got two folders. the spam folder as well as email, I mean inbox folder, all the legitimate emails, okay, genuine mails. So that will be dropped into inbox, and all these spams like bulkily forwarded mails. So that will be put into the spam folder. Now the question comes how it will be done. So that is using this Hashcash algorithm. So this Hashcash algorithm working principle is very simple. So what it will do is it will see how much resources you have burned, how much resources you have used to generate that email. For example, so how much CPU cycles you have used, so how much time you have taken, and how much hard disk space you have taken. There are different parameters. These are the only few parameters what I discussed here, but there are multiple parameters. So based on that one, so at the other end, at the receiving end, the mails will be bifurcated as a spam as well as genuine mail. For example, a genuine user, what he will do is, so he will definitely take some time to prepare a mail. Whereas bulk mails, what exactly happens here is, so bulk mail will be usually sent in terms of thousand receivers, or more than 1,000 receivers. For each mail, for creating each mail, probably the hardware resources used will be very, very less. Okay, so that is a concept what Hashcash uses to identify the spam mails as well as the legitimate mails. Okay, so this revolutionized the the email concept basically. So after this Hashcash, the Hashcash is also called as proof of work algorithm. Proof of work, POW we say. Proof of work means we need to prove that we have worked. We have worked to create a mail. Okay, that is called as proof of work. So that is Hashcash algorithm. And so coming to next thing, so followed by Hashcash, we got B-Money, so which was introduced in 1998. The author is Wei, and it was the very first cryptocurrency algorithm, so which used computational puzzle to create a e-money. For example, you will be given a puzzle. If you solve that puzzle, you'll get some e-money. You'll get some currency in your wallet. Okay. The puzzle could be finding out the root mean square or something, a mathematical puzzle basically, in order to find out some number, a proper number. So after going through some formulas and all those things. So that's a computational puzzle what we have in B-Money, and if you solve that one, you'll get the currency. So that means you need to burn some memory, you need to burn some processing power to find out to solve that computational puzzle. That's what you mean to say. I mean to say here. I'm sorry. And so it's a very first P2P application, peer-to-peer application, what you can find in the literature. And so here one more thing is the transactions will be stored in each and every node. So that means information can be seen in each and every node. It is not a central server concept, so it's a distributed concept. That means if I participate in B-Money, all the transactions will be stored in my local memory, and I can see so what is going on, what transactions are mined, so who mined these transactions and all those things. So it is bit transparent. So that's a transparency thing what B-Money introduced in the literature. Okay, so next followed by B-Money we got BitGold. So it was introduced in 2005 by Nick Szabo. Okay, and it is the features of BitGold is very, very close to Bitcoin. Okay, all the features what we can find in BitGold, it is very much close to Bitcoin. Okay, the only difference is, just see this, so all these, in fact, so for that matter, all the previous concepts what I discussed, right from eCash, the Hashcash, B-Money, BitGold, we could find two disadvantages. So that is, very first one is disagreements among the nodes. So that means though if the transaction is right, I can say that no, transaction is wrong, I won't accept it. And even though the transaction is, the transaction is right. So probably node will not add that information transaction in its own local repository. So there are hundreds of, there are many parameters there. And one more drawback of this, all these concepts is, all these concepts uses third party. It's a central one. Okay. So these are the disadvantages what we could find in all the concepts what we discussed earlier. So okay, minutes back. So now in order to overcome those two loopholes, in 2008, Bitcoin was introduced by a pseudonym called as Satoshi Nakamoto, and he introduced consensus algorithm. A consensus algorithm is one, so which is an agreement among all the nodes. So what do you mean by agreement? In the sense, I'll agree that if the transaction is right, so definitely I'll say yes, I'll accept it. Even though the transaction is right, I'm not supposed to say the transaction is wrong. So that's an agreement what we are, what we are putting or enforcing on the nodes. Okay, and this Bitcoin uses Hashcash as a proof of work. As I said, as I discussed in previous slide, Hashcash is also like, it can be used as a proof of work. So telling that how much resources, the computer resources I have used to come out with the results. Okay, so these two are the additional features what you can find in Bitcoin, along with the features what you can find in the previous concepts. Okay, so that is why I said, so Bitcoin is slowly evolved right from 1980s. So you can see that. So all the concepts are bundled together, and finally in 2008 a complete structure came into picture, and that is Bitcoin. Okay, and now that was a theoretical proof what we had in 2008, but practical implementation came in 2009. Okay, so now I would like to mention here, Satoshi Nakamoto is a pseudonym. Okay, so that means nobody knows. So who is Satoshi Nakamoto? Okay, so why? Because why the question comes, why Satoshi Nakamoto did not reveal his identity. So in one of the slide I said, the blockchain technology, one of the feature of blockchain technology is user anonymity. So that means the behind the address, who is there? Okay, who is working on that address? The nobody knows. Okay, so that means there is a threat for the financial industry. So that means from where the money is coming to where the money is going, nobody can understand. Only thing what they can say is this one, the addresses. For example, take Indian scenario only. So according to Indian government, so we should be transparent. That means, so whatever we do, whatever the financial transactions we do, so that should be known to RBI. So that's the restrictions what the government puts on us. Okay, and so here if you use this blockchain technology, Indian government will not come to know what exactly happened, from where money is coming to where money is going. So that will be completely hidden. For that reason, because there was a threat to there was a threat to financial industry. Satoshi, he did not reveal his name. So he would have got he would have felt that he may face some actions, something like that. Okay, so that is a reason why Satoshi did not reveal his identity, and that is the reason the anonymity, user anonymity feature, the Indian government, in fact, for many governments across in Asian countries as well as many the other countries, the Bitcoin transactions have been they have been banned. So here if I say Bitcoin transaction, in Indian scenario you can buy the Bitcoin, you can sell the Bitcoin, there should not be any problem, but you cannot convert a Bitcoin into your Indian currency. So that is a restriction what Indian government puts. So because if you convert a Bitcoin to Indian currency, so right now Bitcoin a single Bitcoin has got a value around 6 lakhs around. Okay, if you convert a single Bitcoin to Indian currencies, a 6 lakh will be created in the financial field. From where that 6 lakh came, okay, nobody knows. Okay, so that user will be hidden behind. So that for that reason, this Bitcoin transactions are banned in some of the places. And so I said that Satoshi Nakamoto is not a real name, and so I'll tell you, these researchers, sky is the limit for those people. And what they did was they did a research on finding out who is Satoshi Nakamoto. And some people argued that, so Nick Szabo, so you can see this, the Nick Szabo introduced the very previous version of Bitcoin, that is Bitcoin in 2005. They argued that Satoshi Nakamoto is Nick Szabo. So after that, the Nick Szabo told that no, I'm not a Satoshi Nakamoto, and he gave some proofs and all, and so still that argument is going on. But still, researchers are trying to find out who is Satoshi Nakamoto and all, and so let's see. So let's see whether Satoshi Nakamoto comes in front or what in future. So that's about revolution or evolution about blockchain technology. If you ask me, it's an evolution right from 1980s, and we got a solidified the structure in 2008. The idea behind or technology behind Bitcoin is blockchain technology. Okay, so that's what. So now, so differences between centralized as well as blockchain model. If I say centralized, I mean to say client server architecture. Okay, so centralized model. So we got a single central repository like server. So if you got a single central repository, so you can have a single point of failure. If server fails, you'll got a everything will be standstill. You cannot work for even you cannot take one step forward. And next thing is single point of attack. If I attack server, and the same result, like everything will be halted there. And so you can these the contents of server may not be publicly available, and modification can be done at any time by the administration without the knowledge of clients. Okay, so that is a rider there. So within double quotes, I can say that without the knowledge of clients, server can be modified, or server contents can be modified. Okay, so it requires trusted third party because of maintenance cost. So that means for maintaining servers and all, usually companies will go for third parties, and every time registration is required. So that means we need to adhere to the rules and regulations of server. So that's what I mean to say here. And coming to new model, that's blockchain model. The copy of the chain will be there in every participating node. So here, a node is also called as miners. Okay. So in blockchain network, the participating node, the nodes who maintains blockchain, who holds copy of the information, they are called as miners. Okay. So since copy of the chain will be stored in each and every miner, so supposing that we got 100 miners, and we got in all the 100 miners, information will be stored. So that's why it's called as distributed. Okay. And see this one, in all the 100 miners, information will be stored. So that means it is not a single central repository, and it's not a single point of failure. That means if one miner fails, always there are 99 miners to give the service. Okay, and there is no single point of attack because we got 100 miners. Even if one miner gets attacked, there are 99 miners so who can give their service. Okay, and it is publicly available. As I said, it's an open ledger. Okay, and one entry is made in the chain with timestamp which cannot be modified. So that's a contradictory statement for the very first one. Third point in the first model. That's a modification can be done at any time by the administration But here in the new model, it is not at all possible. And no need of trusted third party, the maintenance will not be there because it's a distributed one, it's a democratic one. The miners will themselves, they maintain the network. Okay, that is the advantage what we have. And if chain is corrupted, there is no issue at all. As I said, if among 100 miners, one or two miners fails, there is no problem at all. So those two miners always they can recover and they can extract or they can get the chain from the other miners. Okay, so that is the differences between centralized model as well as blockchain model. Hope I'm clear with you people. And the next thing is, let's see how this blockchain looks like in terms of structure. Okay, and see this one. So as I said, blockchain is a chain of blocks. So we'll be having hundreds of thousands of blocks, and so block structure looks like this. So we'll be having two parts in each and every block. So one is header part, another one is transactions part. Okay, so just like you just see this one, this is a linked list node what I have written here. The node, okay, the node will contain two parts. So one is the information part, this part, and this is the link part. Okay, information part as well as the link part. And so here in the same way, so we got a header part as well as transactions part. So all the transactions, information will be stored in this field, and information about this block, okay, as well as information about transactions, as well as some security part will be stored in header part. Okay, so now see this. So if you go for multiple blocks, it looks like this: header n, n plus 1, n plus 2. In the linked list, we just see this one. Okay, we got multiple nodes and we got a link between the nodes, so through reference, okay, memory reference. So here, so slightly different from linked list. So this node contains information or memory reference about this node. So that means we got a memory reference link between this block to this block. In the same way, so where this block is stored, so that reference will be stored in this block. So that means again a link is maintained between this block n plus 2 to n plus 1. You can see this. Okay, so like this. So like this chain of blocks will be maintained. And in linked list, you can see that you can observe that the very first node in the linked list is called as header node, or different terminologies are used in different textbooks, and some people will say that that's a very first node. First node we say, header node we say, and some more terminologies. But in the blockchain, what we say is the very first block as the genesis block. Okay, so genesis block will be the very first block. So starting from that, so the chain will grow up. Okay, so more and more nodes will be added up to that chain, and it starts growing. Okay, so now this is structure of blockchain, and let us see how this the header part looks like. You can see that. So we got to I've showed some dots here. Okay, and I've given three fields: the Merkle root, previous block hash, as well as timestamp. Okay, and so what I mean here is if you say dots, there can be multiple fields based on the application. Okay, the contents of header differs based on the application, but these are all the fields which are common in each and every block of any blockchain network. Okay, so that means if you take any blockchain network, okay, irrespective of application, so these three fields should be there: Merkle root, previous block hash, as well as timestamp. So let us see how this the transactions are stored in this transaction part. So let us see that, let us assume that we got 4 transactions: transaction A, transaction B, transaction C and D. So now what exactly happens here is, there are different ways to store transactions in the transaction part. Okay, so some people will go for, this is all the research what people have done. So in some applications what people have done is, they have stored transaction linearly, one after the other, and one in a stacked manner, one after the other, continuously, one separated by delimiter. But the best one what people have found out is the tree structure. Okay, so that tree structure saves much time. So while you're going for searching, so as well as so we can have a single value out of all the transactions, that is root node. Okay, so let us see how to construct tree uh, that is Merkle tree. So in case of blockchain network, so we got 4 transactions here. So these are the leaf nodes what we have, and from these leaf nodes you can see that we have constructed parent node of this one. So here what exactly I'm doing is I'm taking hash of transaction A plus hash of transaction B, then I'm constructing hash of AB. So this node is a parent node of these 2 nodes, leaf nodes. Similarly, at the right hand side, I'll construct hash of CD, which is a combination of hash of C, transaction C, plus hash of transaction D. So next, I need to construct, the root node of these two, parent node of these 2 nodes. So then what I'll do is hash of AB, this node, and hash of this node, and then I'll combine that and I'll call it as hash of ABCD. Now see this one, we got a very small tree, so with only 2 or 3 levels, and we got a root node here. So this root node is called as Merkle root, and this Merkle root will be stored in header part of each and every block. So that means you just see this one. So this Merkle root represents each and every transaction, hash of each and every transaction. So transaction A, so you just see the hash of transaction A. So it's also contributed in the hash of ABCD. That means in the Merkle root. Okay. So that is the thing what one should know. So here, so we are not storing transactions serially. Of course, there is an option, but it is not a optimized one. So we can go for tree structure, which is is the best case, and we can construct tree in this way. Okay. And so just see this, like how these links are maintained. Now just see this one, the hash of the header. Okay, so we got 2 blocks here, block n as well as block n plus 1, and we need to create a reference or link between these 2 blocks. How this link is created means we are taking hash of this header part, so that we're going to store in the previous block hash of the next block. Okay, so like this, you just see this one. So I'll take a hash of this header, I'll store that header hash value in the previous block hash of next block. So that means you just see this. So if I say this hash, I'm also storing the reference, memory reference. Okay, so just probably this might give more clarification. Just see this one. Hash of this header block n is 0x3456. So that means it is represented in hexadecimal. A memory reference of block n. So that means where exactly this block is residing in the memory. So that is some 9 followed by 4 zeros and 1. So combining these two, you can see this hash pointer. So will be combination of previous block hash, this one, plus reference, that is memory reference, this one. If you combine this one, you will get this value, which is a hash pointer. Okay, so a hash pointer will be stored in, that hash pointer will be stored in the previous block hash of each and every block, header part of the block. Now we just see this, we have stored the memory reference of this block as well as hash of this block, hash of header of this block. That means memory, you will get it. The hash will give the integrity of the contents. So how? Because you just see this one, supposing that. So we have created the Merkle root, and some intruder has come and he changed the transaction A. For example, transaction A says that I have transferred rupees 100 from my account to your account. So that intruder, what he had done is, instead of 100, he added one more zero and he called it as 1000. So that means, the content has been changed here. If content has been changed, so is the hash. The hash will definitely change. If hash changes, just see this, the link will go here, right? So if this content changes, definitely root will changes, because root is constructed based on the content of this node as well as this node. The root of this node, parent node of this parent node is constructed based on content of transaction A as well as transaction B. So now content has been changed. So is the hash of this one, and so is the hash of ABCD root node. And what happens? The Merkle root also changes. If Merkle root changes, then the previous block hash, this content changes, then link will change. Okay, hope you got this point. Okay, so like this we are maintaining the memory reference as well as the hash, the integrity of previous block. And if something goes wrong, so always, you can always one miner can come to know that something has gone wrong. So now see this one, blockchain architecture. So we got an internet down at the lowest level, and upon that internet we are constructing a distributed network. Okay, so you can see this. So we got mobile nodes here, we got a desktop here, and we got laptops here. So combination of, it's a heterogeneous combination, and all these nodes or all these systems, okay, users are called as miners. Okay, so these are all called as miners, and so all these miners will contain a copy of the blockchain, and you can see that they are they are connected in a distributed manner. So that means each miner can reach other miner in a single hop. They are directly connected. So that is what the meaning of distributed architecture. So that means, distributed in the sense directly we can reach reach those people. That means P2P network, I mean to say peer-to-peer network. So you can reach in a single hop. Okay, single hop the other miner. So now one more thing what you can observe here is, each miner has given some color combination. So we got green as well as red. That means, so it is not mandatory like they have the same color. It is just for our understanding I'm giving this color combination. It is not theoretically, the color combination is not there. Okay, and so what I mean to say here is, so different miners have got different roles. So a miner, a green for example, so that miner can be like the full nodes, and the other node, red nodes, can be SPVs or prune nodes. Full node is one which is responsible for complete activities in blockchain, whereas the other types of nodes, the prune nodes as well as SPVs, simplified payment verification nodes, so they don't have much liberty in this architecture. So of course they have their own roles to play, but not as a full node. Okay, so not as like full nodes. Okay, and this is about miners, this is about distributed network what we have. And in distributed network we got smart contract as well as consensus algorithm. Okay, so smart contract is a business logic. Okay, so it's a business logic what we have. So that means, for example, supposing that, so I'm going to give a blockchain application or blockchain solution for financial transactions or financial application, for example, say. So that means smart contract business logic could be like, before transaction I should prove myself, first point, and second point is I should have enough balance in my account, I should have a proper credibility, and so I should know how to transfer the money and all those things. And the other person, he should be a proper, should have proper address, and so all those things. There are many checklists. Okay, so all those checklists are put in smart contract. Smart contract is business logic, whereas consensus algorithm is the agreement among the miners. Smart contract is different, consensus algorithm is different. The consensus algorithm says if a transaction has been given, or given by the user, all the miners should check the transactions. If it is yes, all the miners should accept it, or else they should reject it. Acceptance and rejection, that's a consensus agreement. So is designed in consensus algorithm, whereas the business logic, so how business should be done, so that is a smart contract. Okay, the consensus algorithm is basically for the miners. The smart contract is business centric. That's what I mean to say here. So both of these algorithms, both of these concepts will come in distributed network only. The next thing is, so next thing is blockchain. So above this distributed network, we got a blockchain, and each and every miner so stores that blockchain, as I said. So we got around nearly around 4 miners here. So all 4 miners will store copy of this blockchain. That means if this miner goes down for some reasons, maybe because of hardware failure, or maybe because software failure, or maybe because of some attack, there are other miners who can take up the responsibilities and who can make the network active. Okay, so like this. So this is a blockchain what we got above that one, and above that one we got a user layer. So where we got distributed applications, we call it as dApps, and these dApps are responsible for interaction, user interaction with the blockchain network. So through these dApps, one can request the user. Okay, a common user can request operations or transactions, okay, to the blockchain network. So here in blockchain network, what exactly the terminology is, whatever you do, whether it's a financial applications, or whether it can be land registration, or it can be supply chain management, or it can be anything, it is called as transactions. Though financial aspects are not there in some of the application, but still the operation is called as transactions. Okay, so that means user can create a transaction, can see the transactions. So that initiating transactions has to be done at the user level. So by using this dApps, they will use this dApp, they'll create a transaction. So that will be handled by consensus algorithm as well as smart contract by these miners, and they will add that transaction into the blockchain. So this is the architecture what we have. So now see this one. So as I said, we got a flexible architecture, and as I said, like each and every miner stores this blockchain. So people have gone one step forward. This is a classical architecture what we can see. It's a classical ecosystem of blockchain. But if you see the recent research, so people have introduced cloud as well. The cloud, in the sense, they are storing blockchain in the cloud, so that the miners need not store all the blockchain in, okay, in their local premises. So though cloud is centralized, so people are slightly deviating from the the rules and regulations of blockchain, and they're using cloud also in some applications. Okay, of course it's an application dependent. The blockchain architecture can be tuned up to suit to any application, to the requirement. Okay, so that's what I mean to say here. So this is an ecosystem what we have for the blockchain. Okay, and the next slide what we have is the working principle of blockchain. So what exactly happens here is, so user will initiate the transactions from the dApp, from the user level, and so that transactions will be submitted to the nearest miner, and that miner so will check the validity of the validity as well as integrity of the transaction. For example, if I have initiated a transaction, the miner should check whether I'm the right person to initiate that transaction, and whether I got the enough balance in my account, and whether I've given the proper value. If I for example, if I ask a miner, if I ask a miner to transfer -100 to some other person, that doesn't have any value at all. The -100, that's a negative value, so that should not be done. Those things the miners have to check, So once the transaction is through from miner, so those transactions will be put in candidate block. A candidate block is one which is not yet added into the main chain, which is about to be added in the main chain. Okay, and after that, so nodes will broadcast that candidate blocks to each other. So I mean, see here. So why we need to broadcast this candidate block to all the miners, in the sense, all the miners should have a, we should have a consensus among all the miners. So that means if they accept this candidate block, okay, so then only that candidate block will be added to the main chain. So accepting candidate block, in a sense, each miners will check the transactions present in that candidate block. Okay. So whether hash is created properly, whether Merkle root is created properly, whether transactions are validated properly, and all those things. So here I'll tell you this is a validation of transactions. So here it's a validation of candidate block. Okay, complete block. And consensus phase comes there if the majority of the miners accepts that candidate block. The candidate block will be added to the main chain. So this is the overall process what we have in blockchain. Okay, so where users initiates the transaction, so then miners will come into picture. So miners will check the integrity of each and every transactions, and then they will add the transaction into the candidate block. If they found that transaction is it's a good one, a proper one. If that is a wrong transaction, or if transaction is could not satisfy the checklist, then and there itself the transaction will be rejected. Okay, and nodes will broadcast the candidate block to every miner. Okay, for the consensus. If consensus is achieved, so consensus in the sense, if all the miners, majority of the miners, I should not say all, if the majority of the miners accepts that candidate block, then that candidate block will be added to the main chain. So this is the process what we have. So now, so as I said, miners are the backbones of blockchain technology. Miners will maintain the blockchain, they will accept the transactions, and they will reject the transactions, and they got multiple functionalities. Let me explain a couple of responsibilities of miners. So they should join the network and listen for transactions. Of course, like whenever the transaction is given to the miner by a user, so it has to incorporate or do all the formalities, as I told in the previous slide. The validating transactions and constructing a candidate block, listen for new block, and validate and rebroadcast a new block when it is proposed. Okay, and store and broadcast the blockchain to the peers. Okay, so this is the responsibilities of miners. Then coming to advantages of blockchain, so it maintains trust between parties. For example, so whenever I do transaction, I'll give a digital signature for that transaction. That means a private key. So this blockchain works on basically public private key concept. If I got a, if I sign any transaction using my private key, so that means the other person will come to know that I only have signed it, and it believes me and it believes the transaction. Because the transaction has been signed by me using my private key. So private key is private, okay? So that means there is a trust between two parties based on the private key, okay? So that is the trust part what we got in blockchain. And of course the counterpart is, if you lose the private key, that's a different story. So you know what could happen, okay? And the next thing is transparency is guaranteed. So as I said, it's an open ledger. Everyone could see what's going on in the blockchain and who is mining the transactions and all those things. And it is immutable. Data once stored, you cannot change it. So we got a decentralization concept. Client server architecture is not there. Only miners. What we got is miners, and all the miners will establish the network, will maintain the network, and will maintain the integrity of the network as well. So will not allow the intruder or adversary to enter the network and spoil the environment there. Never. So they are adhered to the consensus algorithm. So that's what I need to say here. And disadvantage of blockchain is the scalability part. Okay, the scalability part mainly it comes when it's a public blockchain. There are three types of blockchain. So public blockchain, private blockchain, as well as consortium blockchain. A public and private blockchain, as the name itself indicates, it is open to the all the people in the public scenario. A public blockchain, a private blockchain is basically like giving a blockchain or blockchain developed for KLE society. That could be a private blockchain. What I can say, so where only KLE people so can access that blockchain. And there's one more thing called as consortium blockchain, which is a combination of the public as well as private the access. So now see this, if I say public blockchain, it is open to anyone and everyone in the anyone and everyone in the internet. Now if I say it is open, anybody can become miner, even me as well as you. If such is the case, there is no limit on the number of miners in the blockchain. If there is no limit on number of users or miners in the blockchain, so the scalability factor comes into picture. For example, the consensus algorithm or what we have defined, so probably it might not work well when there are lakhs together miners. For example, if you take Bitcoin, so there are lakhs together miners as per today. So getting consensus among all lakhs together miners, it's very difficult. So there is a scalability problem. So that's a research trend. That's one of the research field what people are working on. So next thing is less robust, because scalability is not there. If something goes wrong, so probably blockchain may come down. Okay, scalability, robustness, it won't come down, but probably the operations as well as some other features may, you may get some hiccups. And as I said, you'll get a single chain, and in that single chain, all the information will be stored. So that means you can find a huge data in a single chain. Bitcoin, for example, which was introduced in 2009. As of now, the March 2020, so we got around 269 GB of data. Okay, and if you take Ethereum, we got 140 GB of data. Okay, that's only transactions. So what it includes. Okay, so it's just a decade information, and Ethereum is started in 2015. That's half a decade information. So it will, just imagine after one decade or after another one decade. You can find how enormous information what you can find in Bitcoin as well as Ethereum. Why I'm telling all these things is why this is of concern is nowadays the awareness on Bitcoin as well as Ethereum is going up. So when it started in 2009, it got stabilized after 1 or 2 years, and then only the users started using Bitcoin. So now everybody knows Bitcoin, okay, how it works and all. So probably in another one decade, so enormous amount of information you can find in Bitcoin. So if you got enormous amount of information in a chain, so naturally the performance comes down. Okay, so performance in terms of searching as well as all the other things. So as well as miner has to put more memory power for storing all this information and multiple things. Okay, so now see this, what people have done is they started deleting the old data. Okay, so it's an ongoing research what we have, and they started maintaining the side chains. So what I mean to say here is, so as I said, blockchain is an immutable technology. Blockchain is an immutable technology. So that means nobody can delete, edit, or modify. Those operations. But here, ongoing research is what they did was they did not delete it actually. They stored all those information in the side chain. So now we got two chains. One is main chain, Another one is sidechain. So all the old information you are storing in sidechain, all the happening information you are storing in main chain. For example, just say this one. The Bitcoin started in 2009. So supposing that I have done some transactions in Bitcoin 2009 itself. Now it is 2020. So whatever I've done in 2009, it's of no use to me now. Especially transactions. You just see this, financial transactions. I have transferred amount like 100 rupees to you in 2009. So that's not at all required now actually in 2020. In 2020, the topic of interest would be last 3 years information, or at the max last 5 years information. So that is what people thought. So what they did was like introducing one more chain parallel to main chain, that is called a side chain. So in the side chain, all older information will be there. If at all, if you require such information, always you can get that information from the side chain. Whereas recent information you can get it from main chain. Okay, so that is the concept what people are working on. It is not actually deleting, so don't get confused with this word. They are shifting the information from the main chain to side chain. Okay, so this is the ongoing research what we have. And coming to blockchain applications, uh, so very first application what you can find is supply chain management. Supply chain management, for example, like Amazon or Flipkart. So they can use this blockchain technology for supply chain management. So if they want to track like the items, where exactly it started and where it, at different checkpoints, where exactly it ended up. So those information can be put in blockchain so that whenever you want, user can extract it, as well as the authorities as well. Okay, so one more application of blockchain is healthcare. So where I got a different slide for this healthcare. I'll explain. I'll go in deep with healthcare in the coming slide. And property inheritance, that is nothing but real estate, or what do you call, the land registration. If you go for blockchain application or blockchain solution for land registration, so probably we can avoid duplicate registrations. For example, in the worst case, if you take a plot, there might be 2 registrations for the single plot. So that means there are 2 owners for a single plot. So such things can be avoided in the blockchain. Okay. So though you're having one owner, without the permission of first owner, that means without the signature, private key of first owner, you cannot sell it. The a plot cannot have 2 owners without the permission of very first owner, without the usage of very first owner's private key. That's what I mean to say. And food safety. So food safety is something like one of the company has introduced this blockchain application for food safety. For example, if you go to shopping mall and if you scan the barcodes there, so it will give complete history of that product. Supposing that, so on what date and time, so that product has been developed or packed, from where it has been bought, and what are the checkpoints from where it has come, and how many days it is lying in the shelf. That information also you can get it. Okay, by scanning a simple barcodes. And coming to real estate, so that's as good as property inheritance and data sharing. I can share my data in the blockchain, so that in future anybody can download that information. And passport verification. So as I said, if you go for a blockchain application for blockchain solution for passport verification, always you can avoid duplicate passports concept. Like, okay, so these are some of the applications of blockchain. And you can see that the leading companies are using blockchain. I mean, coming up with a blockchain application, and Google is coming to Google are into blockchain, Recently, you can near soon you can expect some application of blockchain from Google, and Volkswagen have that's what Volkswagen is using a blockchain for supply chain management tracking system, and Samsung is also using blockchain for I think supply chain management as well as cryptocurrencies. So they are planning actually. Okay, so that's about the applications of blockchain as of today. So let us see the question and answers. So these are all the very common questions what I face in the talks that are put in the slides itself. Let me help you in understanding these questions, because most of the time what happens is, though you'll be having these questions in your mind, so you'll be hesitant to ask this question, sometimes hesitant and sometimes time may not permit you. So for that reason, I'll put those questions in the slide itself. So very first question is, can blockchain be used as we do in online banking, the financial sectors? So of course you can use, but the rider here is anonymity. If the government permits, of course, we can use it. See this one, this anonymity, what people have done is they have taken this anonymity as an advantage. So earlier when blockchain got introduced, hackers, what they did was they used to hack the websites, and they used to ask ransom through bitcoins only. So that means only thing what you will come to know, for example, your website has been hacked and the hacker will ask you to deposit some bitcoins in some address. So what you can see is the address, that's it. So who is behind that address? Nobody knows. Who is that hacker? Nobody knows. So that was the trend, hackers trend. But now somehow we could able to put some intelligence and all. We have come up with some the options. Okay, so for this point, that is the first question what we have. Can I become miner? Yes, of course you can become miner, depending on type of blockchain. If it is a public blockchain, of course you can download the supporting softwares, and always you can become miner. And if it is a private blockchain, as I said, I took an example of KLE Society, blockchain solution for KLE Society. If such is the case, being an outsider, I cannot become miner for KLE Society, or I cannot be a user as well for the KLE Society. Of course, I can become user, but limited access. I should have a limited access, that one. And what are the requirements to become miner? It depends on the blockchain network, what you're working on. If it's a private blockchain, we don't have much requirements. So most of the time it should be a dedicated and sophisticated system should do for a miner. And can two transactions have same hash? Because I said in each and every block, the transactions are stored in terms of hash. We are taking hash of each and every transaction. We are constructing a tree, and Merkle root will be taken out from that tree. So the question comes, can two transactions have same hash? We are using very famous hashing algorithm SHA-256. So the answer is no actually, because SHA-256 is a very secured and so very the very long range hashing algorithm. So that means, so it will give a hash between 0 to 2 to the power of 256, 1 to 2 to the power of 256. So I'm telling you, its power 2 to the power of 256. It's a very huge value, very huge value. Okay, so it's very like probability is very less. Okay, so you can imagine the Bitcoin. So right from 2009 it is functional. So far it has not experienced any clash of hashes. Still it is working properly. That's what I mean to say. The value ranges from 1 to 2 to the power of 256. It's a very huge value. The hash will, and as well as it's a very huge value. Okay, it's a very huge value. So it's a 256 bit the chances are very less. And for every transaction, blockchain has to update the hash for validation. How efficient is the process with respect to time and memory? I think here the question is in terms of proof of work, consensus algorithm. If I take Bitcoin, the question comes how people are managing this mining process. You would have heard that mining is a very extensive process, demanding process. Let me put some light on this one. These miners in Bitcoin, they're going to use a device called as ASIC, application specific interface card or chip. And the role of this ASIC is to generate hash. That's it. Okay. So these are the specific systems which are used only for Bitcoin application. It is not like our system, our desktop system, where we will use that one for multiple purpose, for presentation, for office work, for my for my kids classrooms activities and all those things. No. So if you want to become miner, you need to have a dedicated and sophisticated system. And ASIC could be one device what you can stick on to. So for generating hashes, and this ASIC produces tera hashes per second. That's a quite huge number of hashes, and we should have a dedicated miner. That's what I mean to say. Since ASIC is very fast, okay. If I compare the supercomputer with ASIC enabled, a miner, I'll show you next. So probably miner will win. Okay, supercomputer is a multi-purpose system, so where you can work on different applications. Whereas miner, I'll show you that in the next slide. Miners are dedicated, sophisticated, have got a dedicated and sophisticated system. Okay. Now you could see that here in the picture, a miner is having cup of a tea and sitting leisurely, and he is mining the Bitcoin. If you think like that, the job of the miner is a dreamy one, then I'm very sorry. The job of the miner is very hectic. You can see that in the next slide. We just say this. This is one ASIC card what we have for Bitcoin mining, and you can see this. This is one miner. This guy is maintaining racks together. Can you see this one? Can you these pictures? He is maintaining racks together ASIC cards. One ASIC card chip can produce tera hashes per second. Can you imagine how many hashes per second these ASIC cards can produce? Can you imagine the maintenance of these ASIC cards? Can you imagine how much heat it produces? And can you imagine the maintenance part of this, these ASIC cards? So that's what I said. Miner's job in case of Bitcoin, it's not a dream job, it's a very hectic job. And one more question I asked in the beginning, not I asked, one more we discussed, can I become miner? If you can compete with this miner with so many ASIC cards, then of course you can become miner. Okay, and how can I make blockchain as my career? Once the blockchain is, I think it is a bit immature in terms of choosing as a career, because there will not be any maintenance, no human intervention. It works by its own, it stabilizes by its own. Since no maintenance as well as human intervention will be there, I don't think like the opportunity will be less, more. And you can become miner, not for Bitcoins. That's because of the previous slide what I've shown you. And still it's under research. You may have to wait for some time. But right now what you can do is you can develop a DApp, distributed apps for the blockchain. It's a front-end work, web-based applications. That's one thing what you can look into. And what are the steps to become masters in this field? My suggestion is to go on reading, read, and get a very good concept, a concrete concept on blockchain. And so one more thing is, I'm a guy who believes reading is not enough. You need to get your hands dirty. So with the codes, you need to code it. Okay. So there are Ethereum codes as well as Hyperledger code, very famously freely available. You can get into that, and you can check the. You can add some consensus algorithm. You can write some smart contracts there. You can, that's what I said. Get your hands dirty, okay, with the codes. And what are the research trends in blockchain? So consensus algorithm. So you can write a consensus algorithm. So blockchain architecture, and so distributed system message passing. That means so how message has to be passed across the miners. As I said, there will be hundreds of thousands of miners. How to reach those miners effectively without delay? So that is a question. Of course, sidechain, as I explained. So main chain as well as sidechain is a two different concepts what we have. So these are the research trends what we have, and how blockchain can be used to store medical records, which can be useful in drug industry. Suppose, for example, now if I go for any hospital, they'll create an ID, and they'll store all your history as well as prescription in that ID, under that ID in the hospital repository only. For example, that hospital name is XYZ, say, and for some reasons you're not satisfied with that hospital and you'll go for some other hospital, or let us assume that that hospital do not have a expertise, and you're moving to some other hospital, so where the expert, a surgeon is there, and when you go to other hospital, so that other hospital again it will create a new ID for you, and again they'll store all the information in the local repository, in their local repository. So that means so we have two repositories here, a hospital XYZ and hospital PQR, and in these two hospitals you have a different ID, and in these two different IDs you got your own information. Now see this, so doctor of XYZ hospital so cannot access the records stored in PQR hospital, and the doctor in PQR hospital so cannot access data or information stored in the XYZ hospital. So there is a clear bifurcation, there is a line of separation there. But if we go for blockchain, we can create a single blockchain for a patient, for all the patients, where wherever you go, supposing that I'll create an ID, I'll store some information in the blockchain. Whereas whether I go for hospital XYZ or I can go for hospital PQR, irrespective of hospital, irrespective of doctors, okay, the information available to anyone. The now doctor can see the blockchain and he can see, so what was the history of, history of like prescription history as well as, or what do you call, or any like any what would have gone wrong in the earlier days. So that information can be seen using blockchain. Apart from this one more thing is the research concept. We just say this. So nowadays, so most of the research will be done on the healthcare. One or the other way it will be related to healthcare. Okay, and so the learning process, machine learning process, deep learning process we're going to involve, and we got very less data sets. Almost all the data sets what we have, so the research they have enough digged deep and they're left with no option there. Supposing that, so we got a blockchain where information is stored, and if we allow researchers to access that blockchain, so just see how much information he can extract. So there is no need to go for data set at all. Like, I mean, of course, but there is no restrictions here now. I mean, easily a researcher can access the patient history from the blockchain itself directly, provided the patient has to give permission. So that is a rider there. Okay, so that is that's all from my side. So these are the questions what normally people will ask. Thank you very much, and you can reach me out these two mail IDs, kiranmanjappa@nitk.edu.in, or kiranmanjap@gmail.com. And so once again, I thank the coordinators, Professor Vidya ma'am as well as Professor Vijay Kumar sir, for taking up this responsibility during this unusual situation and keeping you people away from that pandemic mind. And also, I would like to thank KLE Society for giving me this opportunity. Thank you. Over to panel.
Thank you so much,
Thank you
sir.
so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was a
That was
wonderful
the
and
one
enlightening session.
enlightenment session.
Priya ma'am?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it is go.
Is it fine, ma'am?
Fine now.
ma'am, if there is
Ma'am,
clear
if there is clear thought,
please
please
like log out of
log out of.
Is it audible, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am, it's proper. Continue, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, participants, if you have any questions, you can post it in the chat box now. So we'll give you a couple of minutes.
I could say one question: what is block time?
Time.
Block time is one, which is the time taken by all the miners to create one block. Okay. In Bitcoin, it is like every 10 minutes it will be created. One block will be created, whereas in Ethereum it is every 15 seconds. Every 15 seconds, one block is created. So that is called as block time, block creation time. A panel, could you see any questions?
Yes, sir. There is one question: real-time application of blockchain.
Real-time application of blockchain could be like supply chain management or land registration, passport verification, or for teaching aids also we can use. Only like if you want to store all the contents permanently in the chain so that your juniors can use all those things. There are multiple applications. I think one of the real application what one can see in Indian scenario is land registration, which was initiated by Telangana government. The very with the very first application what we can see in the Indian scenario. The Telangana government is using blockchain technology for the land registration. So it is still under pilot. So probably by another 1 or 2 years, probably it will get stabilized. It's a pilot. It's a pilot.
Sir, we have some more question. What is the difference between Bitcoin and Ethereum?
Bitcoin and Ethereum, it's an application basically. Bitcoin is a financial application. Ethereum, like that's also currencies. I don't think currencies are there for Ethereum, but it's basically application, different applications. That's it. Bitcoin is a financial application.
The role of blockchain in encryption.
Role of blockchain in encryption. I think it should be role of encryption for blockchain, it seems. If I frame the question properly, encryption is like each and every transactions will be encrypted in blockchain. So that means we got enough security. Okay. So how that encryption happens means like either you can go for hashing, that is SHA-256, or you can go for multiple the encryption techniques.
The last question: research areas in blockchain.
The research areas in blockchain is like the consensus algorithm is one, and the side chain is another one, and the distributed computing, like not computing, in distributed network, how message should be propagated without any delay and all those things. So that could be the research trends in blockchain.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, participants, now we have come to end of the session. So on behalf of management, the institution and the organizers, I thank speaker of today's webinar, Dr. Kiran sir, for enthralling the audience with your talk. I'm thankful to Professor Vijay Kumar AS, Coordinator, Department of BCA, for successfully organizing the webinar. And I thank all my faculty members of Department of BCA for helping to organize. The response we got for this webinar was overwhelming. It is your active participation which motivates us to conduct more webinars. So from the bottom of our heart, we want to thank all the participants for making this webinar a success. So thank you one and all. The feedback link will be given in the chat box. Okay, thank you, sir.
Priya ma'am,
Yes, sir.
so I would like to see the feedback. If it is possible, can you, after collecting feedback, can you share with me, please?
Sure, sir. We will share it with you. Sure, sir.
Thank you again. So thank you, ma'am. I'll log out now. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much.